Good morning and welcome to the Enlightened Path podcast. I'm Patricia Walls, and I'm here today with David Womack, also known as Soaring Eagle, who is the founder of Rhythms of Nature and also one of the guides in that it's it's an adult and youth wilderness immersion rites and passage program. So David is a bushcraft survivalist, permaculture activist, mixed martial artist. Is that right? Warrior, visionary, poet, carpenter, steward, and student of the Mother Earth. And I've been seeing his Facebook post for a long time, and I've always been so touched at the fact that you are bringing the men together, because we have all these women's retreats, all these women's, activities that are offered, and there's only just a handful of masculine warrior type brotherhood events that I know of. There may be more, but there's only like a handful that I know of. So I've always been grateful to you, even unspoken, for what you're doing. And now I understand that it's not just masculine, that it's all genders that you're including, because one of my dear sisters is getting ready to go up and be part of one of your adventures. And she's so excited about that. Mariah, do you know her? Yes, she's so excited about it. Yes. So is there anything you want to jump in and add to that? I mean, you talked about your mission, but how about you tell us from yourself what your mission is and why you're doing what you're doing?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. And likewise, I mean, I've been really watching your journey from Facebook, and it's been beautiful to witness over this platform. And yeah, so oh man, it's been a really deep, long journey of unraveling and peeling the layers off to kind of come to this point, really. And just really the mission is really to bring people back into their earth bodies, right, and help to hold space for people coming from the ascension back to the dissension, right, and allowing these earth-based skills and these ancestral rooted skills and practices to be able to tap into that as well. And there's just a lot of healing through that. And we definitely weaving in these empowerment skills with primitive survival skills as friction fire or different building skills or water purification, wildlife tracking, even hunting rites of passages. These are old traditional methods that I've been raised to do as a young boy, taught from my grandfather. And I've had elders and mentors that have come through the time, bringing me under their wing and teaching me different methods of rites of passages as well, to be able to tap into spirit, right? And that's another thing, is just really deepening the connection with the Mother Earth, and to be able to unprogram from the outside world and shed layers and come back to center and center with spirit, right? So through these vision quests, we're learning these different practical skills that are empowering, and these empowerment skills help us with these steps of becoming sovereign beings as well, right, when we bring this back into our everyday lives. So that's another thing. So through the rites of passage program, each day we're learning different skills, and then about midweek we actually begin to do a fast and cleanse and purification process. And through that, as we're cleaning and processing and purifying, we're creating what's called a hollow bone, right? And so
I
while
talk
we're
a
out,
lot about the hollow bone. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so a lot of people that come in, some are kind of aware of this process and some of them aren't. And
Mhm.
so we definitely do some good hearty backcountry meals that are clean, and then we start kind of winging off that humanized foods, right? And just drinking pure cellular upgraded mother earth river water and tapping into the elements and absorbing the elements of the forest and the mother earth and the mountains and the fire and all this. And how I've been taught through my elders is, waking up early in the morning, staying up late through the night, and doing all these different initiations and rites of passages to really wear out the body and wear out the physical body, wear out the physical mind, and creating this hollow bone to allow spirit to come in and really do the work. And so we can actually come to a place of surrender, right? And all these skills are very humbling. So then we come into, as we're purifying, um, uh, we get sent off to a solo location where you bring your skills and you have your vision quest, and then you come back for your welcoming home ceremony, pretty much. Um, and we do weave in sweat lodge as well. So I was initiated through the Blackfeet and the Bear Clan and the Boer Clan of Europe, and a bundle keeper as well. So we do weave that in, and we definitely weave in elders participating as well. Yeah, so I want to kind of get back to the co-ed part as well. So um, through that, it was pretty wild how that all worked out. So years ago, I started these programs in 2017, 2018, and I sold my house. Uh, that was 2016, 2017, and I just had a really huge catalyst happen in my life, and I began doing these um, different self-help meditations. I've always been pretty tapped in with spirit and nature, but I definitely, there's a place that I got pretty lost in the world, right? And just wrapped up with work and everything. And I had this catalyst happen, and spirit just really had me come back into this authentic center and my soul mission, and reminded me, and it just reminded me of what I was really truly wanting to do, and that was to release everything that I knew of and really study the mother earth. And so I did that, and through that I landed in Washington after traveling from Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, just hiking all the backcountry mountains out there, and landed in Washington. And from there, I plugged into a wilderness survival school, Alderleaf Wilderness College, and this was the first time that I really gave myself permission to really tap into what I was wanting to do. Because straight out of high school, went straight to work, right? And so as I was doing that, I was living in the forest, and I would live in the national forest seasonally, sometimes half a year, sometimes a year. And then spirit just started really weaving in. I was going to school and then weaving in my mentors. I studied with some mystics out in the woods, and really started learning how to work with life force energy, right? And light codes, channeling in my symbols, light language, and really understanding how to reach certain levels of tantra through the forest and the mother earth and these things, right? And as I was doing this, I was going to school. So I'm kind of weaving in these survival skills and everything else. And then I had an elder take me under his wing, and this was my spiritual grandfather, my napi. And and I went under his wing and training as my for my Sundance for the Blackfeet tribe. And then we took the teachings. He was teaching in Europe for 25 years as well, bringing the teachings of the Blackfoot ways out to Europe. And so he's Scots Irish and Blackfoot. And so he initiated me into the Bear Clan and the Boer Clan. So as that all was happening, I was also seasonally going to Peru and studying plant medicines with the Shipibo tribe and the Ashaninka tribe. So when I came back from my second tour of Peru, is when I really channeled in to create the website. And it was like downloads and downloads. And it was like weeks of me just writing, channeling everything that source really wanted me to do and put into this thing. And
Mhm.
before then, I was just kind of doing it kind of word of mouth, and people were seeing my journey on Facebook, and people would come meet me in the woods, and I'd kind of guide them. And then it was like, okay, next step, next level. Um, so at that point, I was pretty wide open with the medicines and working with the ayahuasca. And I was very deeply into um, my feminine, right? And with working with the mother madre plants, right? The cappy vine, the chacruna, and doing all these master plant dietas through the 2 tours in Peru. And I was studying with Benjamin Mala, which is a 100-year-old shaman over there off of Yarnacocha Lake. And Benjamin Mala, his family is the keepers of the tree of consciousness, the tree of light, the Noya Real. So you have to, how he trains is the traditional training and brings you through um, all the traditional master plant dietas, like the lightweight ones first, and then you work your way up all the way up to the Noya Real. And so when I came back from the second tour, I was wide open and very deep into my feminine, and I was definitely guiding everyone, right? Co-ed. And I did that for a couple of years. And as I was coming back from the ascension back into my body, um, I was also working as a carpenter, which actually helped me kind of ground in and tap more into some of my masculine as well, right? And spirit just kept on bringing me deeper and deeper. And then I found myself in Mount Shasta, surrounding myself with some really beautiful craftsmen, where we were building custom homes and log homes out there in Mount Shasta. And Mount Shasta is the root chakra of the Mother Earth. For people that might not know, a really powerful mountain. And I've always found myself magnetized to volcanoes, and doing ley line work in that sense, and just kind of being like a lighthouse and anchoring certain frequencies for the collective in these energetic spots. Um, but there was a huge shift in death process when I arrived to Shasta, and I actually went to Costa Rica as well, but that's a whole nother story. So when I arrived to Shasta, I went through a huge death process and really releasing a lot of different views of myself and these attachments and all this. And I really questioned if I was even going to go forward with doing the wilderness guide, right? And and I was actually, at this point, I was working, but I was actually homeless and living in the forest. So no money, and it was like I was pretty much chasing the visions of spirit for a long time, and it came to this place where I finally just had to come into surrender with no more savings, no nothing, to the root chakra, the deepest root chakra that I've ever really gone through. And it was the opportunity to really come from the deepest roots and build from the ground up and really strengthen my whole foundation, right? My sanctuary, right? And how is this going to look as a masculine of the new paradigm going forward, right? And how is this going to be different from how I was raised? And I was really blessed to be surrounded by these beautiful genius of craftsmen. I mean, it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was heaven on earth, just really surrounded by these beautiful brothers where we were just really shedding layers and really sharing our deepest parts of ourselves, right? And this was really powerful for me because I was kind of lone wolfing for about 5 years after I released from my old job as an emergency responder in the chemical plants. And so there was a tight brotherhood with that, as being a first responder for emergency leak repair and for explosive leaks in the chemical plants. And then also I rode with a motorcycle club for 8 years as a road captain, and this was like a really powerful brotherhood. And I released from all that when I sold my home, and it took about 5 years of really peeling off layers before I could really arrive to some men that I could surround myself that was healthy. And this was a healthy outlet, and I could really see how much this was needed, right? And so as I was embodying my new masculine, um, I left Shasta and I came back to Washington. Washington always has this way of bringing me back. And it's really just, this is my home, I love this place. Just the wilderness and the rivers, the volcanoes, everything. So when I came back to Washington, um, I was really calling out. I put the wave out, and there's been many times I've done men's circles for many years, but this time it was like, okay, like I'm ready to really ground in and hold this space, right? It wasn't this wishy-washy, constantly moving all over the place and traveling. I'm pretty traveled out, to tell you the truth. So I'm like, I'm anchoring in. So um, but anyway, so and really and truly, I needed the brotherhood just as much as all the brothers needed as well, right? So I definitely, it was the first time that I really actually created a men's warriors retreat. And um and I wanted to do that as well because almost all of my old, I guess in the past, all of my wilderness immersions, more women would show up than men actually. And
Really?
yeah. So I would find myself, I would do a retreat and I would find myself with being surrounded by and holding space for like 12 women, and no men. I'm like, okay, well, these are my initiations. So um but yeah, no, those were all very powerful, and everybody that's ever showed up are big hitters, and when they come to counsel around the fire, it's some deep work that we all do. And so I'm like, okay, I really need to put this out, and I really want some men to really show up,
Yeah.
so let's do this thing. And so yeah, I put it out, and it was really, spirit was really telling me years ago to create a warriors retreat. And I've noticed sometimes, even when I arrive to a new property, if I'm building a retreat center, doing a work trade or whatever I'm doing, If I draw the property, I usually arrive, a year or 2 years later to the property that I either manifest or I draw, right? There's definitely instant manifestations that happen quickly, but usually bigger manifestations, especially with properties and doing those such of things kind of take some time. But it's also the inner work that has to take place as well for the outer reflections to materialize right into reality. um but anyway, so it was very clear. I went to Mount Tahoma. In the native tongue, that means the mother of waters, and which is a very powerful, dear place to my heart. And I would live in Mount Tahoma for 6 months at a time, and then seasonally going to Peru. And she really held me out there through many of layers, and have guided a lot of people out there. And I went to Chinook Pass and just really sat with her, and it's just this beautiful view of the mountain. And it was just this huge download. I was actually elk hunting out there, and I was on this peak, and I was just sitting with her, and it was just this instant powerful download that just channeled in. It's like, this is where you're doing the men's retreat, the warriors retreat.
Uh-huh.
So
And where is Mount Tahoma?
so Mount Tahoma is Mount Rainier. Um, so it's a volcano. It's pretty centralized in Washington. It's on the western side of the Cascades. Well,
Uh-huh.
part of it's on the eastern side, and part of it's on the western side. But it's about an hour and a half southeast of Seattle. So, but it's a very powerful uh, volcano, very powerful energy. It's a main ley line point, and it's one of the main watersheds of all of Washington. So,
So let me break in and ask you a question
yeah,
that the beings are wanting me to ask you. And
yeah,
so when we think of the planet that we're on, and we think of different chakra points, and I'm not a huge component of chakras, of the limitations of chakras, but uh, so Mount Shasta is considered the root, right?
correct.
I've heard that Glastonbury, which is one of my favorite places in the world to go, Glastonbury, UK. Where you return to Peru, I return to Glastonbury as often as possible. Or
Nice.
you return to Washington. Mine is Glastonbury. And Glastonbury is said to be the heart. That's where the chalice is, the chalice well. So
Yep.
what would, in your understanding, what would Washington be in all of that, all of the movements, all of the grid lines? What would be the importance of Washington?
Oh man, there's a lot of different elements to that question, but
Yeah.
um, I now, so Mount Tahoma to me is pretty much one of the main source energy points for the whole um, west side, the Pacific Northwest, pretty much all the way to Mount Shasta, for the whole grid line right there. There's definitely smaller grid lines that pass through this, and there's points on Whidbey Island where there's naval bases and stuff like this too. And that's you'll definitely, when you kind of track these there, you'll find that there's usually military bases really close to these main points as well.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother rabbit hole, right? um but yeah, if I was going to uh align it with some sort of um chakra, I mean, it's to me, it's just this really powerful. It's really green and really blue, you know. So it's I wouldn't say it's a main chakra point of the Mother Earth by any means, but it's definitely a powerful point, right? So it's definitely a lot of um, sacral, solar to the heart area, to the throat as well. But I mean, every point.
You know how they talk about the, well, how are they saying it? Okay, so they talk about the heart chakra and then the high heart chakra, right? They talk about the crown chakra and then the solar star, and they talk about the earth star chakra. So there's more than just the, you know, 7 or whatever that they tell us about.
So they call
So
those
what
the
I'm
breathing
seeing,
lines.
yeah. So what I'm seeing for where you are is more, they're showing me, and it's crazy, but they're showing me veins, right? The veins in the human being. So through our veins, they're not, you know, there's blood, there's oxygen, there's, you know, all of the components that we need in order to live and survive flow through our veins, right? And so they had me ask that question of you on purpose. And so they're showing me like, they're showing me center point of human beings. If you had to relate that to human beings, they're showing me center point, like the, what do they call that? The hara, where your navel is.
Yep.
So they're showing me that part of human beings in relationship to where you are, and how, you know, when we're born, our umbilical is connected to our mother, right? But everything stems out from that area in our body. Everything moves out in different directions from that area. So it's interesting that they led me to ask you to be on the show, because I guess they wanted me personally, and whenever I learn something, everybody else learns it, right? And so they wanted me to know that particular place, because I've heard so many people talk about the sacredness of Washington, really. And I have Lakota relatives who work out of Wimby. Is it Wimby? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Frank Sanchez. I don't know if you run across him out there, but so yeah, that's what they're showing me, is it's related to the Denyen, the Hara, and
that's exactly kind of what I was picking up to. It's you know, and I know it definitely works with the Mount Shasta area too, but it's that in between space, right? And it's like that powerful, it has this really powerful way of really grounding you in. It's almost scary how much Washington can really ground you in. It almost makes you feel lethargic because it slows you down so much. But once you get used to it and you really do some time in these magical forests here, and that's a whole nother level of with these trees here, and you know, the old growth forest and the magic that happens within those portals in there, and the singing trees and the rivers. There's this magical space that you can tap in to the womb of the mother, right? And these veins and the blood, the rivers, right? And that we're drinking off of. And it allows you to tap into that womb with your mother, and the bigger mother, and the mother that's cradling us, right? That allows us to shed and come back to that powerful rebirth that's taking place that we need to go through, right? And so yeah, it's I definitely feel that navel area as well.
and the beings are having a giggle because they tell me that you've seen the trees walk, and they're so happy that you've seen the trees walk. Yeah, because not everybody gets to see that.
I've definitely have witnessed a lot of different spiritual action that a lot of people would probably, as my cousin would say, I remember long ago when I was getting really deep into this and trying to explain to my family some of these things. He goes, David, I think your cheese done slid off your cracker, boy.
Oh, I love that.
But yeah, I've definitely seen the trees walk. Um, I've I've held space with the spirits that walk between the shadows,
Yeah.
the mountain people, the fairies, the
Mhm.
uh I've definitely tapped into many of places and spaces out here. Um
Yeah.
yeah.
God, there was so much in what you shared. And it seems as though, your base was being in the masculine. And there are so many of my brothers and cousins and uncles and whatever, sons. There's so many who didn't have the opportunity to grow up with the masculine base.
Mhm.
They only grew up with a feminine base. And so I'm so happy that you've gathered all of this knowledge and information for helping people get back into the core of their being, because yeah, I mean, we are a technical industry being right now. I mean, we're on Zoom, right? And
Oh,
so,
yeah, definitely.
and we're on Facebook, and
Yep.
and for me, that's a blessing. I'm not going to discount that, because it allows me to be in contact with other humans that I wouldn't have contact with, and so I'm grateful for that. I also know that it is important for us to unplug and
Oh,
get
yeah.
back to who we are, and to
Right.
remember that that we are in a physical body, and it requires certain nutrients, including sun, including original vibration water, including original vibration earth. Because I mean, the truth is, what I have around me right now is implanted soil. It's
Mhm.
not original soil. And
Definitely.
so I think it is important for people to return to that. And I'm so happy that you are one of the people who are offering that opportunity to other people. And there I go glowing. So the beings were going, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I like to say it's especially for the wilderness immersion rites of passages, because out there is no technology, there's no cell phone service, and a lot of people, that's a threshold and initiation for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And but I like to say it's 3 days deep into the wilderness and you can find your center. So it usually takes about 3 days of kind of unprogramming from the outside world before you really start kind of arriving back. And then those next 3 days are just even more powerful, right? But yeah, it's just super important also, um, to just really create time for the balance, right? And I'm a full-time carpenter as well, right? And a full-time wilderness guide. And it took a long time. I mean, I've been on my hands and knees just praying to God to help me with balance. And I'm finally in this place where the work comes to me with the guiding, the carpentry. I'm not having to, of course, I'm putting energy out for it, but I'm not chasing it down, right? And it's
Right.
just really weaving how it should. But it's very important for this balance with others, with nature as well. And to weekly or daily or something in this nature, right? And which I think even like a simple uh what I call a still spot into somebody's routine weekly. And a still spot is finding a park or a place in your backyard or somewhere where you can connect to nature for an hour, and you really sit still and journal what you see, what kind of trees, what kind of grass, what kind of soil, what kind of birds were there, right? And this also starts helping with mindfulness and awareness, right? And so we start connecting with the nature, and then we start going down deeper and wanting to know, what are the names of these trees? What are the names to the birds? What was the alert of the bird, right? What was the song of the bird? What kind of language is the bird telling us, right? So it can start opening up all these other doors as well. But it's just a really beautiful practice that people can implement to do a little bit of nature connection. And if one wants to go deeper with it, they can, right? So we do teach that a little bit too, a lot of still spots in nature while we're doing our immersions, and also creating other programs as well with youth and weekend workshops. And also, I want to throw in there in the future, I'm definitely working towards working with at-risk youth and adults, right? So, which is really important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how the wilderness program that you're talking about, how long is the program altogether?
So, well, it used to be a 9-month program that I had, and
Oh, wow. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. So, but now, right now, I'm kind of in this in between stage of rewriting a lot and updating, kind of working with a team, doing some bigger business plans and some nonprofits, and kind of getting reorganized to do a youth program, which will be like a seasonal summer program for kids.
Mhm.
And then right now we're just only doing 2 of the what's called a wilderness immersion rites of passage. And those are um, yeah, 6 nights, 7 days rites of passages. And through that is usually through the sign up, it's a lot of holding space um, for the for before you go in, and then the post integration as well. Um, so, and then usually lifetime friends afterwards as well. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, so, um, and then actually right now with the at-risk youth program, that's going to be opening up and for the adults as well, so we can work with people's insurance and do a more holistic style of healing instead of the westernized culture feeding people drugs or whatever it might be. Try to start weaving people into nature, right? So I don't know exactly how that program is going to look just yet, but I'm actually scheduled to talk to one of the therapists that I'll be working with, and see what we can kind of come up with that. And I've got some beautiful people like starting to really show up, right? And that's also been a journey within itself, is honoring people's journey as guides. Certain guides come in and out of rhythms of nature, and working with them and honoring their walk as well, and not being attached to them staying concreted with me, right?
Right.
And because that's really part of this, is holding space for other people to step into their power to go do their thing. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so
And
the
that's
team.
true, because like
Yeah,
one person who comes in to assist you may just actually be there for one person, one participant. And
right.
then they have that interaction with that one participant, and their frequency is not aligned with the other people who show up. So yeah, you do have to be fluid, don't you? But it sounds like Sounds like Source is sending you great teams of people and bringing everything together. And I know Mariah can talk to you about the whole, nonprofit thing. You should definitely pick her brain.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah. So we definitely have some similar interests and passions.
mhm.
As she's she's on the conservation team,
Yeah,
and I've definitely I'm doing projects with conservation in Peru, and we're actually working with some of the native tribes out there as well, when funds allow, and
yeah,
all that good stuff, and still going out there and checking in once a year in January. And but anyways, but also I'm definitely um grounding in and doing the bigger plan right here as well in Washington. And as that unfolds and deepens, but yeah, really the idea would be to really create a really beautiful holistic healing retreat center where people can drop in and we can demonstrate a living self-sustainable kind of in an off-grid situation, but still on grid at the same time, and just a really good base camp for community for people to come in and then to go out from there and guide people from there, right? And so that's kind of the bigger mission and dream as well. So
yeah. Because the beings want to know if you're offering, or they want you to consider. I'll put it that way. If you're offering retreats to other locations, like taking groups to Peru, taking groups to Mount Shasta, taking groups to Arizona,
oh yeah,
are you doing
so
that? Are you considering it?
oh yeah, so in the beginning, it was really wild. I actually almost bit off too much that I could chew, but it was all necessary for me to kind of go into a surrender, right? And have some death processes of myself. And but in the beginning, I was actually guiding people to West Texas and Big Bend, Texas, doing a river trip, canoe trip
Yeah.
down the Rio Grande into Mexico and back. Um, I've had some really powerful. That's where one of my huge awakenings happened out there, and that really told me that I needed to start doing this work, right? So I usually take people that's really powerful to me. This year, January, so it'll be every January that we guide people to Peru, and we're working with Adam Stone at Yarnacocha Lake. Um, and he's been married into the Shipibo tribe. He's a wilderness guide in Maine, but he's been married into the Shipibo tribe for 20 years. And he's got a 50-acre permaculture farm out there that we work with, and we're doing conservation, a lot of tree planting. We're building ponds out there for the paishi fish, which is an almost extinct fish, and we're building these ponds so they can breed the fish for food, for selling at the markets, and also returning an amount back into the Amazon rivers. So people will have a chance to go out there. It's a 2-week journey, and we'll go to the actual permaculture farm, and you get to really tap into that culture out there with the Shipibo tribe and help out on the farm and go undertake a sit with the medicine with some really profound, well-known elder shamans out there that are true lineage keepers of the sacred Icaros and the medicines, right? Um, and then to be able to do some work on the permaculture farm, and then we take people to meet the Ashanika tribe, and which is in the upper jungle, right? And I did some time out there, and they're the keepers these are the keepers and the warriors of the jungle that protected the jungle from the rubber traders in the 1980s, right?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like a 3-day, it was a puddle plane. We took a puddle plane, 3 days boat drive, and then hiking through the jungle to meet the Ashanika. And we arrived, I had a whole backpack full of rice and lentils, and it was around Christmas, so we had a fruitcake. We had fruitcake with us. So so when we arrived to the tribe, that's what we gave them, this rice and lentils and fruitcakes. And um one of their initiations is to, you have to sit with the outer, one of the outer leaders and protectors of the tribe. They had these protectors on all outsides, kind of guarding the village. And you sit with that guardian, and you drink this masato, which is it's like a fermented, chewed up yucca root. And they chew this root up and spit it into bowls and let it ferment, and you drink it. And so we did that, and then we were allowed to go and sit with the chief, and I lived with the chief for some time, and hung out with her son. And out there, the chiefs are actually women, right? So which is super powerful, right? And
Yeah.
so I sat with her and her son, and her and her son, or her son and I would go trail hiking and bird watching, and singing bird language, and just having fun, just doing all that. And whenever I left, um, we did a gift exchange, and um, they gave me a Shanika name as well, Siote. And Siote means one of the most beautiful birds of the jungle that can mimic all the other birds. So it was a pretty beautiful name. Um, so yeah, we do Peru. At one time, I was actually guiding to Costa Rica as well. Um, I'm actually in 2 weeks. Well, next weekend, I'm actually guiding somebody on a custom. I do get custom guide work as well, and I'm doing a custom guided trip from Washington to Mount Shasta. So, and we'll be in Mount Shasta for like a week and a half over there. So, going through different initiations and practices, and taking her to all the main hot points as well. So, um,
So are all of these offerings on your website?
uh, not right now. I'm going through the old ones, like the Peru and Texas and Costa Rica and Washington. At one time, it was all on there. And then I kind of had to release from that and focus just on Washington for a minute, so I could kind of
Right.
ground in, so I wasn't all over the place. But as we speak, the website is going through some updates where I will be, you know, uh, providing more information on guided trips to Shasta and so forth. So
Right. And if somebody, because I know that, or I can imagine that you would filter who you work with. And so someone could just email you or note, or, message you on Facebook and ask if they were needing or wanting special services. They could just ask you for that, and then you'll pray about it and decide whether or not that would be beneficial,
right,
for all involved. And so I'm saying that out loud so that people can contact you. It doesn't mean that you're going to do this for them. It means that, that they can ask, and you will get your counsel on it, whether or not it's the best thing for everybody. So
right. Right. Exactly. That was
Yeah,
really
so
well
no
said.
limitations. I'm just putting it out there. There's no limits. There's just right time, right place.
Correct. Right. And yeah, and that usually I definitely like to get to know my clients a little bit before I do
Mhm,
take them because there's a lot that we do go through. So um
mhm.
anyhow, but usually the people that are guided to me are definitely meant to be, every once in a while you'll definitely have some that'll come through that are a little fishy, so but um they usually weave themselves out, right? So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I have this deal with spirit, that there's a gate and there's a gatekeeper, and that no one gets in that gate, that has, you know, uh nefarious intentions or whatever. Yeah.
right. And yeah, a lot of the people, a lot of people that I've done one-on-one work with or special custom intimate groups, um it's usually people that I've known through other people, through mutual friends,
Yeah.
or they've been in my circles or something like that. So
Yeah.
our energies are usually kind of circling around until it kind of like matches, and then okay, let's do this work. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're in the car and you must be just burning up.
yeah, yeah, it's
So,
starting to get a little warm in here. So yeah.
yeah. Do you have any last advice for anybody or anything that you want to share that we
Mm.
didn't cover?
Man, we covered so much.
Yeah.
I think just to be gentle on yourself through this journey, and if anybody ever needs to reach out for support, I'm here, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
am so grateful. I'm going to say on behalf of everybody, we are all grateful that you are there and that you're offering what you're offering to humanity. And it's been, I know that you've benefited from the journey, as we all do, right? Our own journeys, but I'm grateful that that you're sharing that you've been called to share that with um, the greater need.
Mm,
So, and I tell people I've got like, I don't know how many voices talking to me at the same time. So sometimes I'm like, okay, shut up. I'm going to say that. But
right.
I, so when I list you on the podcast, I'm going to list some links for you, how people can get in touch with you.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
right now I've got Facebook. I can look up your website, but if there's any other ways that are any other like YouTubes or any of that that I don't know about, can you
Okay.
send those to me on Messenger so I can include them
Definitely.
on your podcast page so people have
Yeah,
information?
sure. Yep, I'll definitely send over all that information, and you can link it all on there. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to stop the recording in a second, but thank you very much for joining us, David, and for all that you're doing in the community. And I want to thank everybody who has joined this podcast and who follow it so that you will get notifications every time we have a new interview or a new guest. And so
Definitely.
I will look for all of you on the next episode.
Thank you so much. Shikianda ye takumara tumda ye.